A little while ago, I made a short, it was a joke more than anything, asking for some hot takes because it was a video format that was trending, so, you know, why not? But once again, I ended up getting a lot of interesting takes that I want to talk about. I'm not going to be retreading any ground here. I have 2 other hot take videos, not resurfacing any of those discussions. All new stuff, because as time goes on, the community changes and, you know, certain things become common knowledge. We don't need to discuss those. But then there's still so many unique ideas about the game. To get us started, I'm going to be offering up my own hot take. Now that I've done a couple more full playthroughs, there's something I've been noticing in the early game that's lacking in the late game, and that's energy management. Honestly, I have a bit of fun figuring out what to use my energy on in the first couple of weeks. It helps keep your days short and sweet, and if you really want to do more, there's a couple of different strategies to get early game food, whether it's calculating out the absolute best money to energy ratio at the saloon, or spending a couple of days harvesting salmon berries. But once you get to, say, I think year 1 fall, I just start to forget the mechanic entirely. There's so many things that you're passively doing that decrease your energy consumption. As you eat star drops, they increase your max energy. As you level up, your tools use less energy. And as you upgrade your tools, you can do the actions of 10 tool uses in 1 action. And then after a full day of hard work, you find that you only used 10% of your max energy. So my hot take is that energy needs to be more strict. Not in the early game. Early game's fine, but it has to scale so much slower. And only once you get to real end game where you can enchant with efficient should you really not be worrying about energy. And I know that's controversial because that's a part of the early game that people hate, but I've just learned to love it. Now onto a couple of hot takes from the community. Starting with a banger, Ginger Island sucks. I love Leo the most, but bro, it's so boring and grindy and the days are already short enough. Now I gotta take care of a second farm too? I wish we can opt out. This is a take I've surprisingly found very often, which is crazy to me because personally, I'm a Ginger Island lover. The game doesn't start until I get to Ginger Island. It definitely helps already knowing the walnut locations, I'm sure, because otherwise that can feel like a really long grind. But like my thing is, it is optional. You can opt out of it. Just don't use the farm. All that really leaves is Leo, the walnuts, and the volcano, all of which you can skip now, thanks to the perfection waivers on Ginger Island. All you really need is enough golden walnuts to open up the dig site, and you can do that in 1 day, so it is skippable. And you know, maybe it was designed that way because Concerned Ape thought it would be a controversial addition. I don't know. Usually I try to come to a middle ground, but this is when I'm like, I love Ginger Island. Joja isn't evil enough. They need to be more antagonistic if the farmer doesn't side with them. So this one's very interesting because Concerned Ape also said this in a recent interview with PC Gamer. He was saying that he wished he made the decision between Community Center and Joja a bit harder for the players. Maybe there's some major downsides if you do end up choosing the Community Center because Joja is so antagonistic. It lines up with this hot take pretty well. And I think I've actually discussed this before, but kind of the opposite, where if you choose Joja Mart, you get a bunch of benefits. This way, if you choose Community Center, you have to deal with the fallout from Joja. I also like that take. I think either would be very interesting for the game, and maybe this is actually one we'll see in the future. Shane being unfriendly when you bother him at 8 AM on the way to work is actually entirely reasonable. Thank you. So I'm not one of those people that's like everything in a game needs to be realistic, right? However, if you were to approach me as a complete stranger out on the street, not at some event or anything, just out on the street, I'm walking to work or to the grocery store, and try to strike up conversation, you'd see like the little Sims negative sign appear above my head. It is weird, and I for one am very happy that there's a couple of characters in the game that represent that more realistic reaction. Shane, Haley, George, even Linus to a certain extent, because he's skeptical of anyone wanting to actually come up to him to have a good conversation. This is like the same kind of discussion that the Animal Crossing community has been having since New Leaf came out, where all of the villagers are just built to be super happy and friendly all the time, as opposed to some of them, you know, they used to be a little bit antagonistic, or maybe they would poke fun at you as like a joke between friends, and now it's kind of like watered down. I'm very happy that we don't have that one type of character. And I think that's what pushes me to enjoy Haley and Shane as much as I do. This next one might not be a hot take, but it's an incredibly good idea in my opinion. I wish tomatoes changed to fruit or vegetable based on what the player chooses in that cutscene. So there's a cutscene in the game where Robin and Demetrius are arguing about what exactly a tomato is, and it's the whole thing where like a tomato is technically a fruit and a vegetable. They're not mutually exclusive. But in Stardew Valley, you can't be both. They do have different properties. They have different results when you put them in kegs or preserve jars. And vegetables are universal dislikes for some characters in the game. And for a decision you make in a random cutscene to have a lasting effect on how tomatoes work, I think would be revolutionary. I would love that. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's fun. Here's a doozy. Clint is a normal, lonely guy with a crush who shouldn't be vilified for being awkward around women. Honestly, I feel like I flip-flop on this a lot. Because sometimes, I'll be replaying the game and I'll see a specific dialogue line from him and I'll be like, ooh, ah. And then other times, I do feel bad. Guy hasn't really gotten a break. He sleeps at the place he works at. He's on the opposite side of the river as everyone else in town. And when you look at it, he doesn't have any friends. Maybe the farmer, once you get hearts up with him. But if I recall, he just never hangs out with anyone else. I think this is a character that you could really go into a deep dive into, analyzing their personality and the reasons why they act the way they do. Yeah, here's a little shout out, I suppose. Fiona Sangster has been doing this with a lot of the romanceable candidates, and they have me locked in for their multiple hour run times. The one about Shane is 3.5 hours, and that's part 1. I think Clint similarly has a lot to talk about here, and while I do enjoy myself a good joke about Clint, I'm open to considering him a misunderstood character. And this isn't to say, I want to get ahead of this, Emily owes him nothing, but I don't think Clint's issues are exclusively with Emily. Similar to the last one, I actually love Pam so much. I know she's not a great mother, but her vibe is really amusing to me. I have to agree. We know she's not a good mother. This is a fact. We cannot really dispute it. But again, she's been through some stuff too. She's a single mother. Father ran out on her, if I remember the backstory correctly. And just, you as the farmer, I look at Pam and being like, okay, this is the first person that I want on my side in this town, right? Am I the only one that gets that vibe? Say something crazy goes on, someone posts a scandal on the town Facebook page, or you get in a bar fight. Pam on your side, you win. You're gonna win. I feel like she would be loyal to the people that support her. She's just not a good mom. Here's one for a little introspection. People who absolutely optimize the game, filling every tile in the world with kegs, etc., stress me out, especially when many of them advertise it as the way to play. Don't avoid doing this or similar. So, when I started making Stardew content, that was kind of the direction I leaned in. I assumed everyone, like me, wants to optimize the game, get their way through it as quick as possible, really go through the math and everything, because that's something I enjoy doing. And I come from an area of gaming that's not cozy, I suppose you could call it. When I play Mega Man, I want to do like a speed run or a buster only type thing. When I'm building my factories in Satisfactory, I'm doing the math to make sure there's not a single thing wasted. And that's what I went into in Stardew Valley before I realized that the real joy of the game is being able to play the game in whatever way you want. So when I made some of my earlier guides, specifically like the Spring Year 1, Summer Year 1, those guides I made alongside my original Let's Play, I did say this is what you do if you want to complete the community center in year 1, like it's a requirement. Because to me, it is. If I don't complete the community center in year 1, I'm like, well, I might as well restart because now I just have to go through an entire other year anyway to complete it. And obviously I've realized that that is not the way to kind of present a guide. Now I try to frame it more as I'm making your life easier, use it if you want, all that type of stuff. And in fact, I love doing these challenge runs where the entire idea is making the game less optimized. And I like to think that almost all creators know that this is kind of like, the no-no. I don't think I've personally seen anyone be like, oh, if you play slowly, you're bad at the game or anything. But I have seen quite a bit of the opposite. Whereas, if you watch like a min-max run or a speed run, people in the comments will be like, ugh, why are you playing this way? This sucks. But there's the same lesson to be learned there. People play the game the way they want to enjoy it. Sometimes people feel they need to optimize the fun out of the game, but for other people, the fun is the optimizing. Let the people play how they want to play. Last one of the night, we have a doozy. I love Junimo Kart. It borders on obsession. I think it's one of the best aspects of the game. Last year on April Fool's Day, someone on Reddit said 1.6 is getting rid of Junimo Kart, and I cried for 4 hours straight. I seriously can't get enough of it, and I'm not gonna read the rest of it, but I think you get the gist. They love Junimo Kart. a historically hated part of the game, including by me. If I never had to play Junimo Kart again, I'd be happy. Sometimes I see people putting on like little Junimo Kart tournaments and I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll practice for it and I'll join in. And then I play Junimo Kart for like 10 seconds and I'm like, I actually hate this. And the thing is, it's not a bad game, I don't think. It's very comparable to like the minecart stages in Donkey Kong Country, which are generally favorably viewed by the community. But the issue here is that this is a farming game, and Junimo Kart is not farming, nor does it use any of the same skills that, farming does. Calculating your crops out, planning your money, making sure that none of your crops get destroyed. None of the same skills. And so you put something like that into a farming game, most people are probably not going to enjoy it. And the same thing can be said for fishing. And this debate has been picking back up because Concerned Ape actually said in that same interview with PC Gamer, we got a lot of content out of that he does wish that he made fishing easier to start. To which a ton of people are like, what? The fishing minigame's great. Here's a poll I made. I was expecting it to be a little more polarizing of more people saying it's too difficult, but that's still a pretty solid portion. And just like these people dislike fishing, I dislike Junimo Kart. That thing sucks. To finish this off here, we're gonna keep it light, gonna keep it jokey. Hump day, am I right? Here's some of the responses that made me chuckle. Clint needs an ankle monitor. See, I can still laugh at something like this and still think Clint's a complicated character. Mr. Key definitely sounds like the hello kitten memes. This is probably the only TikTok creator that I would be absolutely starstruck to meet. And finally, apples should be a hated gift for Harvey. And that's lore accurate because he indulges in microwave dinners. If you have thoughts on these hot takes or have hot takes of your own, leave them in the comments. Thank you for watching, and good night.